Hi, everybody. Welcome. Glad to see you. Hi, guys. Let's take just a couple of minutes to get everybody in. Glad to see you. Getting things started today. Just sign in, please, with your first and last name. Just another way for me to keep week to week of our attendance. Hope you guys are doing well. We'll get started in just a minute. Go ahead and sign in. Just made our module available for today, but we'll be looking at that together. I have a Google Slide session I'll be sharing with you here in just a few minutes. And talking about what you all have been working on and what's coming up. I'm going to take just a couple more minutes to get everybody time to come in. Hope you guys are doing well. Let me know if you have any questions as you're waiting. Take just a couple more minutes as you're coming in, get signed in. We'll get started together in about 2 more minutes. Let me give everybody some time to come in. We have a few more that haven't joined yet. Do sign in on the chat box there if you haven't yet, please. Find my sheet. Oh, there it is. Okay. Feel free to jump in if you have any questions before we start. We're going to, do our usual review of your module that you worked on and think a little bit about what's coming up. Let me just wait a couple more minutes. We have a few I'm waiting on, so start here in 2 more minutes. Just make sure you signed in. We'll start together in just a minute. We're thinking about comprehension and fluency and those different activities you did for this week. If you have that ELAR-STR binder handy or around, we're going to start talking about a couple of those competencies here. So I should have asked you to have that ready just as a reference here in a few minutes. Okay, guys, we'll start in just 1 more minute, so just make sure you're signed in. We're going to be doing our review of our modules and looking at what's coming up. I just made those modules available. If you have your ELAR-STR binder handy, you'll be looking at that in a little bit, or I'll be referring to it, so that would be helpful if you have it. Let me see, a couple more. And do make sure you're signed in. I think everybody doing that. Thank you. Okay. Glad to see you this week. Hope everything's going well. I can't believe we're getting closer and closer to the end of our semester. I'm sure that you guys can believe it. Seems like it's been a long one in a lot of ways. But we've got a few more things that we're going to finish up together in class, and really today talking about what's coming up and looking ahead over our last few weeks together. So do make sure you've signed in. I'll go ahead and get started. Just like I said, signing in helps to give me another way of recording our attendance, just in case I don't get it jotted down when we're meeting. So thank you guys for joining. I'm glad to see you all. I hope that you're feeling okay and being on track with the modules and what all is due. It seems like you all have been, working through those on track. Make sure that you are in contact with me if you have any issues or you're behind or have something that you're worrying about when it comes to your assignments. Because just like we planned, after, I guess we did our revised schedule after the snowstorm, and, we're moving forward with modules every couple of weeks. So for today, You should be completed with your Comprehension and Fluency module and all of the different components that were included there. And as we look forward, you'll focus in on writing and the component of writing. So make sure you jump in and ask me any questions as I move forward, guys. What I'm going to do is go ahead and share my screen and go over to our module that I just made available. And you should see, we're going to talk through everything, but like I usually like to do, just stick together with me and we'll get through everything together. Everything will make more sense if you kind of wait on me to talk through everything. But to start with, I want to do, just like we always do, a review of what all you have been working on, what you've been thinking about, and for the assignments for our class and the areas that we were covering for this week. So I made the link, and there's the Google slide session that I have ready to discuss for today. So you have access to that, and that's what we're going to start off with. So guys, I keep coming back to this. This is, I keep talking about each time that we meet, this particular course really aligns the most with that Science of Teaching reading exam out of all the reading classes. I mean, also the 4450 class, but we're getting a little more in depth in this class. And so aside from the test prep sessions that are available, if you didn't do them live, you should be accessing all of those, because it will make a lot of sense to you right now as you're in this class. And probably a little bit harder as the semesters go on, because then you start, it gets further away from all the different things that we've done to work on these areas. So I'm pulling this information out again and again, because I want you to see that the work that you're doing, it aligns obviously with what you're going to do as a classroom teacher and what you need to know, but also this very, detailed exam that you're going to be needing to pass, the Science of Teaching reading. And so what I wanted to look at here, I've shown you this chart before, but this is again showing you the different components, the different areas, the domains that are covered in that exam. And over the last couple of weeks, and if you look back over this semester, you've worked through each of these sections in different ways. And now, over the last couple of weeks, you've been in the work around reading fluency and also comprehension. And so one thing that I really, that you want to be very aware of here is look at the comprehension piece. It's actually one whole domain on its own. And so that's where you should hopefully be very aware that this is a pretty big piece that you need to understand and be familiar with. And so the work that you did this week, along with the extra supplemental resources that I have in the Science of Teaching reading modules, all of that is what's going to be key to help you understand this area. And clearly it's a big area to understand. And guys, it makes sense that it's a big area to understand, right? Because comprehension is basically what pulls everything together when it comes to a reader and a writer. Comprehension is the understanding piece, where the meaning is. And so if we don't have comprehension and we're reading a book or writing a story, then it's not making any sense. And we're not going to be able to talk about that story afterwards, or what we wrote following the writing piece. And so again, we have to understand how to, all of those pieces that we have to understand in each literacy area. Again, the same visual coming up, the focus this time on the fluency and comprehension. But what we're needing to understand are, what are the components of that? How do you assess it? And then what do you do with that assessment? And how do you plan instruction in any of these areas, thinking about all the different learners you have in your class? And so again, I keep on emphasizing that if you have those components understood in each of these areas, then you're really getting a grasp on what you need to understand as a teacher, as an effective literacy teacher, and to be comfortable with the content of that exam. So I want to take you to a couple of places. This link, and we have it in different places because it's taking us over to the competencies of the exam because I wanted to point those out again of what we were covering for today. To start with, the fluency one, we've already, thinking about how each one builds, and you've started with oral language. Now we're all the way through. We have to have all of those foundational pieces done to be able to be a fluent reader and writer, and of course to have the comprehension. So guys, here's the fluency competency. And so if you have your binder, this is where you're putting a post-it note or highlighting, looking through these descriptive statements, again saying, over the last couple of weeks, did I have an opportunity to look at how fluency is assessed? And if so, what notes can you make here to help you with remembering that? And then beyond the fluency, beyond the assessment, it becomes, what do I do with those results? Do I know how to read the results and use them to help me plan instruction? And so looking through all of these, it again, understanding what is the definition of fluency, what are the different components of it, and then how do I assess it, how do I teach for it? And so again, looking through here and doing that highlighting and thinking about going into the glossary that you have also in your binder and seeing, do you see these terms here that you're not certain about? And if not, then include them in there. So making sure that you've looked at those areas. Again, I'm just doing a glance through them, but that's what you do to get a little more in depth with your study. And ideally you would be doing that like around now. You just finished this work around fluency and comprehension. So it's fresh in your mind, the quiz that you just took, all of that. So that's where you really could come in here and make your notes about the connections that you have with these different descriptive statements and what opportunities did you have within the activities to practice these. So making sure you take a few minutes to look through that. And so guys, when it comes to comprehension, again, it's really breaking it down to this idea of how do we develop it? And then the idea that we need to understand as teachers that comprehension looks different depending on the kind of texts that are being read. And so this is where understanding the different genres of literature come in, and knowing that depending on the genre that you're reading either aloud or that the students are reading independently, comprehension looks a little different. And the questions that you're asking look a little different, and what you're expecting them to respond is different. And so that's why both of those, they break comprehension into two different competencies, being the comprehension of literary texts and the comprehension of informational texts. And so understanding what both of those are is a big key to, feeling good about these two competencies. And so that's one, we're about to look closer at those areas of comprehension. But the other bit, guys, that is also aligned with what you've done over the past couple of weeks, and especially in the quiz, as you looked at that video of Jackson and did a little writing about what you noticed in terms of comprehension and fluency. The reason you're doing things like that, of course, as a classroom teacher, you need to be able to effectively write about what your students can do and what they need in each of these literacy areas. And also, when we look at the last piece of the Science of Teaching Reading exam, it is actually a written part that you'll need to complete. And so it's a constructed response. That work that you did on the quiz, looking at Jackson reading and just writing a little bit about each of those areas, is basically an example of what you'll be doing on this exam. And so I just went to, on the link I took you over to this other resource that is posted that actually has practice questions for each competency area. So a good resource for you. But I'm taking you all the way to the end of that because that's where it addresses the very last piece of the exam. And the last piece of the exam is the written part that you're going to do. And so I'm pointing this out because you really want to think about, you know, the way that you're, again, writing. Notice what you're noticing when you're observing students reading and writing, and the way that you need to talk about that. And in this case, how you have to write about it. And so we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But again, using this as a resource. And so making a note in your binder to look at these practice questions and look at the, you know, this demonstration. They give you a demonstration that's going to look similar to what you're going to be doing on the test, where you're going to look at the assessment results for the student in a couple of different areas. You're going to listen to the child read. And then you see scores in these different areas of phonics and phonemic awareness. And then you go in and talk about that. There's the transcript of, and so here is where you see the example of how you respond to all of those areas that you see. And so this is basically where you get a chance not to have to do multiple choice responses. You get to show what you know in a, you know, I don't remember exactly what the word limit is, but the idea is that you're not just saying, oh, he's doing great and it looks like he's on grade level, that you're actually saying, this is what's exactly what I'm seeing in terms of the level in phonemic awareness and phonological awareness. This is what I'm seeing in the stage of reading development. And so you're really consolidating all your knowledge and sharing that in this narrative piece that is the end of that exam that you have. And so it's very important that you're practicing that. And so again, that quiz that you did at the very last question, looking at Jackson reading, that is an example, just a snippet, because all that showed you was the reading part. In the exam, you'll be also analyzing the other portions of literacy, the phonological awareness, vocabulary, comprehension, and fluency. So it's just an example there. And we're going to talk about that again in a minute and have a little bit more practice. But let me do, just like I always like to do, is show you some things that help you in terms of visuals that bring home these different components that you need to understand. And so one big thing with fluency, and a thing that comes out as classroom teachers, is that is really fully understanding the different components of this literacy area. And so often if you ask a teacher, or you know, when to reflect on fluency and what does that mean, that they might just say, well, how fast are the students reading? How does the reading sound? And so you see that that response addresses a couple of the areas of fluency. Yes, it has to do with the rate that students are reading at and understanding what the expectation is at every grade level for how quickly a child should be reading words per minute. And then, of course, the prosody, that's that expression part, that it sounds like they're asking a question. If there's a question mark, that there is a little more expression and enthusiasm if they see an exclamation point. And so if you see a student doing that, then and reading at a nice rate, then we say, okay, a couple of those areas of fluency are addressed, and that the student shows that they understand. And then we also want to think about a couple of these other two areas as well. So again, understanding that it's not just how fast and the expression that's being used. It also has to do with, you know, if we get to a hard part, if a student is reading a book and they get to a word they don't know, what do they do? What strategy do they use? And how effective is it for them? So do they get to a word they don't know and they are able to quickly and automatically solve that word, whether it's through using meaning or visual information? And are they able to do that without making mistakes? And so again, thinking about these different areas, and then going back to thinking about that video of Jackson, and I said, what can you say about his fluency? The, you know, really spot on response would address each of these areas to say, how is he doing with his rate, his prosody, his automaticity, and his accuracy? And giving a response to each of those areas show that you fully understand all the components of fluency. Any questions or comments, guys? Anyone want to jump in there? And now thinking back to what you saw with Jackson. I'll wait a second to see if anybody will jump in and give a comment. Okay, you're all fascinated, I guess, by fluency. Yeah, feel free to throw it into the chat box if you want to do that as well. Don't want to put anybody on the spot. But I really hope that you're, kind of taking this in and recognizing like, okay, I'm going to have to not just be able to, read about this. I need to be able to write about it and accurately interpret what a student is doing that I watch and observe. This is another good resource, guys. I was just talking to you. This refers to the rate when it comes to the rate component in fluency. And so this is where what you're expected to understand. And often when you see a teacher doing an assessment, sometimes you see that they have that stopwatch in their hand or they're using their phone as the student is reading. And that helps them to say how many words, within 60 seconds, how many words do the students read? And hopefully they fall within these words per minute for their grade level. And that tells you if they are on grade level, below, or above. The other piece now, guys, moving on, any comments about fluency? Hopefully that's making sense to you, thinking about the different pieces that we need to understand, that we assess for and teach for. Sometimes a student can read really fast. That does not mean they are fluent. In fact, that's an article I read back in my pre-service program. Reading fast is fluent. And that helps as a teacher to recognize, like, we're not trying to be the fastest reader. We're not doing these races to see who can get done the quickest. It has to do with all of these areas and how that comes together to help you comprehend the story. And now, guys, moving on to the comprehension piece and the overview of what you've covered part is now thinking, just like I said, understanding the two different genres, the literary texts being the fiction genre and the informational being nonfiction books. And so each of those have different characteristics that you need to understand, because your questions or the way that it impacts the way that you talk about a book with your students and what you expect them to understand. And again, the questions that you're asking them before, during, and after reading, depending on the type of book that you're reading. So the first step, again, if we have that foundation of comprehension, is knowing what genre is this book when I pick it up, so I know how to talk to students about it. And you'll find these different, within the major categories, there's subcategories. And in classrooms, I think that's kind of my next couple of, you'll see the visuals. That's what I'm trying to show you, just posters that teachers have up for students to refer to, because not only as the teacher are we supposed to know different ways of interacting with different types of genres, obviously we want our students to do that as well. So as teachers, we are leading them to be able to independently do that. So a scaffold such as this being up in the classroom, you share a text with them, and then it's up to them to say, okay, this is a genre that falls under a fairy tale, and that means I know it's not true. I should see things such as once upon a time, a plot, a setting, and all those different characteristics that go along with fairy tales. And so that's part of understanding, getting deeper comprehension, right, is understanding the different components of the genres. Yeah, I kind of jumped ahead. So when we're talking about the fiction books, the ones that are pretend stories, that's when we're asking our students to identify these elements. And so if it is an informational text or a nonfiction book, we won't be asking them, what is the conflict in the story? What is who are the characters? Because now it's going to be a true story. And so we have to interact with that book differently. And so thinking through the different books that your students might be reading or that you're sharing with them. And when it comes to nonfiction books, they have different kinds of structures. So sometimes, you know, like a very easy nonfiction book might be bigger and smaller, which are bigger, which are smaller. And so like a compare and contrast. Another nonfiction book might be, you know, the phases of the plants, or, you know, of the water sequence, and that's the sequential order that you would expect to see. So the idea is that we're teaching our students, here are different ways that these books are set up, and depending on how they're set up, we'll see keywords that help us to comprehend them, and we'll provide graphic organizers that are appropriate scaffolds for the type of book that you're sharing with them. So you wouldn't give a problem and solution graphic organizer if it was a descriptive text. And so this is another piece, making sure that the resources you provide for your students to support them actually match what they need and align with the other materials that you're sharing. And so again, this is the kind of question you might see in terms of if this is the book that is being shared by the teacher, what type of graphic organizer would be appropriate, and giving you some examples of that. So hopefully getting an idea. And okay, here is I knew I had put up an example of a teacher poster that you would see in the classroom. So again, expecting our students to do this independently means that we provide resources for them so that they don't have to ask us every time that they encounter a new text. And so now they should be able to open up a book, a nonfiction book, and say, what type is it? And understand how to help them further, how to help themselves comprehend it better.
In the videos that we watched, you saw a lot of that, like the kids would look, like I guess the teacher had a lot of anchor charts. It looked kind of messy because there was a lot of them, but you could see that the kids would be like, give me a moment, they would pause, and then they would look, and then they would make their connection. So I thought that was cool.
Good, thank you for jumping in. Yes, exactly. I love that point. It looked kind of messy, and that's the kind of classroom that where learning is taking place, right? It's not all about how perfect everything looks. The teacher probably made some quick visual anchor charts and stuck them up there, and the kids know where to look and they know what to use as a resource without the teacher having to jump in. And that, you know, if you're reflecting on a day as a teacher, it is always how independent were my students today in the work that I gave them? How much support did I have to give them, and what can I do differently to lead to more independence tomorrow? And so that might be, oh, I need an anchor chart, or, oh, I need to provide a rubric for them. So that kind of reflection is very important. And I'm glad you pointed that out, because that's the kinds of things that I want you to notice when you're watching those videos. Anybody else, guys? Any other comments around comprehension and these different kinds of texts? Let me hear from a couple of you before I go on. Any comments, any thoughts around understanding these different types of genres? Gonna wait. Ooh, I'm about to call on somebody. I have to open up my thing here. Who wants to jump in and give me a comment about comprehension, fluency, thinking about either how this looks as a teacher or what you need to know for the test?
I guess I'll say something. I noticed when I was taking the quiz, there was, well, I got a few of them wrong, but one of them in particular that I got wrong, I think was like, it was a series of questions of just scenarios, and we had to like, guess which one of these nonfiction structures did fall into, if it was like chronological, if it was you know, problem and solution, cause and effect. And I think one of them was asking about the Great Depression and then the effects that the Great Depression had. So in my mind, I immediately gravitated towards, I think, cause and effect. And then I believe it was wrong. I think the right answer was problem and solution. And so it can just be tricky like that because why wouldn't it be cause and effect, you know?
Right. Yeah, that's good. And really being able to clarify that's a good example, because you've got to understand that yourself in order to be able to teach that. And so that's helping you to think about, yeah, I need to explore my texts and fully understand them so that I'm ready to talk about that with my students. Yeah, that's a good point. And those two areas are very closely related. So it's very, you know, you'd have to look closely as to what was being, the different details to help you really clarify that. Anybody else? Well, thank you, Selena. You got the gold star for jumping in. I know it's not easy, guys, but also just putting a comment in the chat box. It just helps me to know that you're kind of following along. It's harder whenever I'm just talking here. Okay, guys, so then as far as another piece that you know, when you again do your reflection on how in-depth the comprehension is, the comprehension level for your students. And that's where we think about, you know, often you might say, what is a strategy for helping a student, or to know if a student has comprehension around a text? And our answer might be questioning. You know, we ask them questions. But now you want to think a little more specifically about and explicitly about, okay, so we ask them questions, but what types of questions do we ask in order to understand if there's a deep comprehension? And so, you know, you do either read aloud or have a student read aloud, and then you're asking questions, and then your reflection on your own. And as you're analyzing what the student did well, is to look at your questions and to say, was this a literal question? You know, where was Little Red Riding Hood going in the forest that evening? That's a literal question straight out of the book. Or was it an inferential question, such as, how do you think Little Red Riding Hood's grandmother was feeling when she was hiding in the closet, hearing Little Red Riding Hood get there? And so a student that was not actually covered in the story. It's not something that was written about in Little Red Riding Hood. But if you're reading the book, then you should have some idea or be able to infer some of that information. And then an even level 3, an even more difficult question is getting a student to think about evaluating, you know, what do you think about what the wolf did at the end of the story? Do you think that, how do you think they were feeling? How do you think that, why do you think that they reacted the way that they did, or he reacted the way he did? Do you agree with that? You know, and that's just a very basic level 3 question. But, you know, the idea is that it's not just about questioning, it's about what types of questions. And the way that the students respond to those questions helps you to know how deep that comprehension is in that story. And so again, when you're writing about how a student comprehended a story, you can say they had literal comprehension, they were able to make some inferences. However, they were not able to evaluate at the highest level of comprehension. So really getting more detailed, again, thinking about the specific components of that area and being able to talk about them and analyze that with your students. So now, guys, the same thing as before, and now I do want you to participate, because it's just putting your comments into the chat box. So again, this is another way that I check participation is, you know, that you respond here. You don't have to jump in, you know, orally, just put your comments in. And this is, again, the same practice, what you did on the quiz. And now after we've talked and after I've shared all this information, maybe you can get a little more detail than you did before. So now what I'm going to do is show this video of Jackson. This is a different book than what you saw in the quiz, and do the same thing. just any comments that you have that you can talk about. I put comprehension and fluency, but you can make comments about his oral language if there's examples there. You can put comments about his stage of reading. Now thinking about fluency, you can put the different components that we just talked about. So what about his reading rate? What about his accuracy, automaticity, and the expression prosody as you're listening to him read? So any of those things, guys, and I want to review this afterwards and make sure everybody jumps in with a comment there in the chat box. So I'll just play the video.
Okay, babe, so have you seen this book?
I have not seen it I've never read it before. I've only looked at the front cover, and my teacher told me what the front cover is called, Farm Animals. And when I saw it, I just feel like that piggy was too cute to ignore and not pick it.
So this is when you wanted to read a little bit on your own. So let's see how you do. First, we'll talk about it a little bit, and then you can read it. Oh, you want to just jump right in?
Come and meet, come and meet my friends on farm. Okay, here is the chicken with her little chicks. Here is the turkey coming to meet you. Wait, here is the turkey coming to meet you. That's literally what it says, but I'm pretty sure that's what it says, and yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
Listen, here is the turkey coming to meet you.
Oh, it's a joke. It's sort of like a joke. That's what he was trying to do. Here is the pigs. Here are flowers, piggies, pigs.
Let's try it from right here.
Here are flowers. Oh no.
3.
3 pigs. Pigs. Wait. That's not the word pig. Pink. Here are 3 pink pigs. Because he was seeing the color of them. Here are the cows looking at you. Look at that one's nose. Cows have big nose when you're right next to them. Here is the dog. Here are her son sleeping. Here are her sleeping puppies. Puppies, I guess. I think that's true.
Does that make sense?
Here is the dog. Here are her sleeping puppies. Here are the sheep with a little lamb, because sheep babies are called lambs because
That makes sense.
they're in their own family. Here is the goat laying down with her kid. Here are the ducks with their father duck. Here are the white goose looking all around. Here is the horse. Horses running with her fawn? No. What are horses called? Mostly called again?
They're called foals.
Foals. Oh, yeah, because they're sort of related to cows. Because, wow, that I do not know what that is. Here are two little
Do you know what these are?
no, I don't think I
How do they start? How does it start at the beginning?
Pup
Good. They're called ponies.
ponies.
I think you've heard of ponies
pretty-
before.
Ponies are pretty different from and there's no farm without a little mischief maker.
Little
Here
mischief
is-
maker.
Here is the cat. Here is the cat. Coming up the curve. Kitty. Oh, kitten. Kitten. Up with her kid. Come see us again.
What makes sense? Come see us again. Ooh. Soon.
Come see us again soon.
Nice. Now, this last sentence down here.
Which animal
What kind of question do you think they would ask at the end? Which animal? What might be that question? What do you think? After you read all about the animals, what would make sense that they would ask you at the end? What do you think they want to know? Which animal what?
Which animal
Do?
you like the most?
That makes sense, right? Of course they would ask that. Now try that. Which animal do you like the most?
Which animal do you like the most? Because I don't really know. It's like a tie between three. Like either pig, dog, or horse. Actually, I sort of like ponies and horses. They're pretty cool ones.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, they're almost as fast as cheetahs.
You think
Except
so?
They're like, no, they aren't because they're not good for going around and like going rush hopping and like swift turns because their tail isn't like swift like a cheetah's and they're pretty heavy, which means and their weight depends on how fast they go.
Okay, let's look at this real quick. You read on this page, it was a little bit tough, but you kind of figured it out. This is the
Okay, guys, I'm going to stop there because that's really the work that you see Jackson doing independently. So what I want you to make note of is his independent work more than the work he does with me after. So I'm looking at some comments. Does anybody want to jump in? I'll give a little more time for you to add something and thinking about comprehension, fluency, oral language.
I wanted to add something.
Good, go ahead.
I saw some differences between this video and the one that was through the exam.
Mhm.
On the main one, I think, was the visual images. He was using the visual images to kind of comprehend what the word was, versus the one on the exam. The images on those weren't matching to the words, and it was just a small circle with a picture, and it wasn't really helping him.
Mhm.
And so he had to use like rereading it. And right here he uses like one of the strategies is rereading, but also with the help of visual images.
Mhm. With looking at the pictures.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he's doing a little cross-checking. He's rereading to make it make sense, and using the pictures is helping him with meaning also. And then I think a lot of you noted he's also, I think his quick go-to strategy when he gets to a hard part, who can tell me? You know, what is his go-to thing? What tool does he reach for first if there's a word that he doesn't know? What is his first thing to try? Anybody jump in?
He segments the word and sounds it out.
Exactly, yes. Good, yes, and you're putting that in the comments also. Yeah, his first thing is the decoding. And sometimes he does it efficiently where he takes it apart in parts, but sometimes, and that's when I jumped in, whenever he was saying e instead of free, I think that was the word, because we don't want to hear him going letter by letter. We want him to be more efficient and look at the blends and the parts of the words. And so that's where you do that analysis. What kind of decoding is he doing, and is it working for him? And then going beyond decoding to now we want to get him to incorporate, integrate the meaning as well. So that kind of sounding it out, decoding when they get to a hard part, it's when we jump in and say, also think about what would make sense and help them to do it a little more quickly, a little more automatically. Other comments, guys? Anything? I had made a comment about the oral language. Anyone else want to say anything about what you noticed with comprehension? Any other pieces?
I want to comment on his oral language. When he was reading about the pigs, I noticed that he had said, wait, that's not the word pig. And then he started to sound out pink instead of pig. And so I think when he was reading that, he was kind of using the picture as well as he was using the visual to kind of help him decode that word. But he was also looking at the sound at the end of the word and noticed that pink and pig are very different. And so he, what did he say? He said that he was seeing the color of them, like he was kind of describing the picture of it. And so I thought that was interesting that he kind of noted, like he even told himself, oh wait, this is not pig, this is pink.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a great thing to notice. You're right. So that's helping you to get a glimpse into also that prior knowledge. It's what do I know about this word? What is the picture helping me to understand? And does it look right? Does it match how it should look when I'm saying this word? He's good about that monitoring. He doesn't continue reading at like some students just keep on going even if it's not making sense. He's kind of stopping and that's why sometimes as the teacher, you jump in just to keep him going with the reading. And just give him some.
Okay, babe. So have you seen
So
this
yeah,
book?
hopefully you see some great examples there in the comments that you're making, guys. Again, it's the practice of analyzing the way that we think of what we're wanting to notice when we're looking at a student, but also the idea of, you know, this is exactly this exercise that we're needing to do on that exam as well. So who can either in the chat box or jump in, what stage of reading development? Are we thinking he's an emergent reader? One that's more fluent, one that's fully fluent? What stage of reading development might you say that Jackson is falling into? And I think that we're emergent, beginning, or fluent. So we've got thinking about those 3 different stages.
I think he's emergent, maybe.
So you really, and that's where we have to now go back to our chart on the stages of reading development and look at those characteristics. And that's something back in 4450 that you guys did as well. But it's really what we see Jackson doing are giving us characteristics in and out of the different stages. And so if we wanted to talk about what stage he was in, I think we see characteristics of him in the beginning stage. Emergent really being those kinds of level 1 to 2 books where we're just doing environmental print and, you know, doing the repeated pages on every page. So he's a little beyond that. And also we do see some glimpses of a fluent reader, but not quite, you know, where we say he's fully in that stage yet. And so, yeah, I think that where we say he's a beginning reader, he's able to independently solve, you know, unknown words. And so he has some good strategies and he's developing, but not fully fluent yet. And guys, I like how one of you pointed out, you know, this looked different from the one that you saw in the video. And one of the reasons being the one on the video, I believe, was a familiar reading. And you heard him talk a lot about that book. He was very enthusiastic about that book. And so it sounded different. And because he's had more opportunities to interact with that. And so that's the kind of thing you should notice is, and that you comment on, that you can comment on is, you know, the fluency, the comprehension indicates that this is a very well-known book, a familiar story to him. Or, you know, the fact that he wasn't as fluent on this text tells us, well, that makes sense. It's a new book. So he's still working through, you know, understanding it, solving all the words in order to show us that comprehension and fluency. Anything else, guys?
One thing I did notice is that he was interested in the book and motivated. So I think that's also a good thing, like a good beginning for comprehension, because he even says at the beginning, oh, I picked this book because I remember, like, my teacher said the title and I remember the picture. And that shows that he wanted to read the book and to not stop until like finishing it or comprehending what he was reading because it was interesting to him.
Yes, motivation is number 1, right? If he's looking at the book and being like, oh, well, you know, then that's going to he's going to be doing different things when he gets to a hard part because all we're trying to do is get through it. And so that's exactly, if we're not motivated, then we're not moving forward. And so giving him that choice, and obviously there was something attractive to him about this text, and you hear him talking about that. So that kind of tells you, like, good book choice, teacher, you know, good job, teacher, because she really hit something that is going to encourage him to work. This book is a little, you know, we talk about that zone of proximal development, a little bit out of his reach, but still manageable with the teacher's support. And so it's within his zone, even if sometimes we say, gosh, that seems like he's really struggling. It's not to where he's not able to comprehend or that you see that frustration set in. So again, we're pleased with that teacher's choice, and we feel like she's really connecting to show that she's helping Jackson to move forward as a reader with those book choices. Okay, good, guys. So just again, exercise and a practice, but also I just think that's interesting and a great comparison to what you had seen back on the quiz. Okay, and that was the end of that PowerPoint that I have posted. Again, guys, just the whole idea of this reflection and thinking back to the work you did in the module, and then using this PowerPoint as a supplement, as a further resource to understanding the content. I keep on repeating that because it's not just understanding it to get your assignment done. It's to get the content and be able to move forward using that in not only the exam, but in your classrooms. So all of that, really making those connections is important. Okay, guys, so now what I want to do is come back to our module, what I had for today. I've posted a couple of new things. I just want to make sure, like I said, I'm summarizing what's coming up in the last few weeks. And so what we have, this has been on the calendar and now it's available, the page. It's a pretty, straightforward assignment as far as what all it includes. But this is where we're finally going to be able to utilize our class textbook, and using that, you're going to be participating in this little reading camp that the author of this book did to accompany this text. It actually accompanies two different texts, so she'll refer to two different ones, but you'll be able to actually look at your own text and use some of the work that she's talking about there. So what I'm doing right now is just giving a quick review of this project. Actually, the due date I kind of revised a couple of those due dates just to make sure you have time to get everything done. And this little, I'm just calling it reading camp. Your assignment is just to go to that link, and you'll see, and I said that it's at the bottom of that page. What you're doing is participating in Monday through Friday. So 5 different days where this author is going to, it's a video that it takes you to in the link, and she's going to talk through some of the different strategies from the book. And so it's for you to watch the video, and then you have a little reflection to complete for each of the 5, each day. There's 5 total videos, 5 days total. And so again, this shouldn't take you that long, but you do have a couple of weeks to complete that. I think I made the due date May 3rd, so even May 4th. So this is the reflection sheet, guys. So it's just completing this table for each of the videos that you view each day. You're going to summarize it, talk about the focus strategy from the text, do a little reflection on it, and include any questions that you have about it. Questions or thoughts or comments I can put there. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure we had reviewed that together so that you were aware that that's now available. Any questions?
I went to the reading camp and it directed me to the video, but it's telling me that I need to log in into Facebook.
Yeah, that's a minor detail there. It is connected to Facebook, and it's connected to this Facebook page of the publishers. So hopefully you're able to do that, or you just are connected. Just let me know if you don't have a Facebook page and you don't want to start one just for this video, because that is required. Okay, and really it hasn't been an issue before because most everybody has one, or they'll just make one very quickly to access the videos and then disable it afterwards. So it's up to you, but be in touch if that's a problem for some reason. Okay, and so then the other module that's available now is back, is just the writing assignments, guys. So making sure that you see that back over where we just were. And so this is the page. Oops, I don't have that one available yet, sorry. So this is your page of our in-class work. Shortly, I'll put up the recording of today's after class. I'll put that available. So if you need to review, or for those that were absent, hopefully we didn't have many that were absent today. And so what I did here at the bottom, this pretty much, I mean, it sort of matches our revised calendar that we did a few weeks back. But I did make a couple of these due dates, just that summer camp and these end your class project, your curriculum design project, just to be due on May 4th, which will be our last meeting date. So we'll get together on that date and share those projects. I have a group share plan. And then I'm about to be putting up, guys, just the summary, the way that you're going to wrap up the one-to-one work that you're doing with your student. I know some of you are waiting on that. And I have condensed that one down as well. So it doesn't have too much more to add to what you've already done. And so all of that in a couple of weeks, May 4th. So what is that? A couple of weeks from, actually more than a couple of weeks. But still, guys, you'll have the writing module with the 2 weeks as usual. So we don't meet next week, which is the 20th or the 20th. And then the 27th we'll meet, and that's to discuss your writing module and then any last minute questions about those last few things that you're finishing up on. And then the very next week, so that's a little different, we'll meet again for our sharing and our wrap up of those projects. And the last week of the semester, we won't meet, but you'll have a reflection and a final that kind of pulls some questions from across the different components that you've worked on throughout the semester. So that's how we're going to be wrapping everything up. So questions, guys, really talking through everything, but making sure that you see where it is and know where to access it all. Always remember to access your work through the pages, please, instead of trying to get to through the assignment links, because this is where all the details are included. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry to interrupt.
I had a question. So last week you said a project was due. Was that because I know we have a project due at the end of the semester, but it said something about a project was due last week. Was that just like a mistake or?
I'm not sure. No, there was nothing due last week, right, guys? I think I just redid the due date for the classroom design project, and so that's now.
Okay, that's probably what it was.
Yeah,
I was freaking out, and I was like, and I clicked the link, and it was actually, I don't know why, but it was like people already turned some in, but then I looked like my name was my name was on one of them, so I'm thinking it was just like an old project, and I was like, and I was kind of freaking out because I didn't know it was a project due last week.
Okay, I mean, are we talking about maybe afterwards I can look more closely. I just really am not sure, but it might have been from a previous module. I don't know.
Okay.
I'll look afterwards. I mean, anything due right now.
What about the one-to-one work?
That's the one that I'll be posting here in just a little bit. I'm just going to summarize how you're going to finish it up. So like I said, I'm going to condense down what you'll be doing to wrap that piece up as well. So that's the one page that's not available yet, but you'll see it here in just a little bit. I think everything else is available and you should be able to access it, but make sure and tell me if there's any part that's not letting you get to it. Okay, so everybody, you see where things are and how you access them and what's coming up, where the writing material, where the writing assignments are for that module. And so now, guys, we're wrapping up. Again, I want you to stick around if you have questions about the curriculum design project, the classroom design project, because that's not something we're talking about, I mean, necessarily today, but I definitely want to hear from you as you're working on that, if you have questions. And all of that info is posted for you, so you should be proceeding on that on your own or with your group. So, so now, guys, we're finishing up. If you don't have questions, if you're feeling okay about everything, then I'll just say I'll see you in a couple of weeks, and thank you for joining. If you have questions, I'm here for you, and I'll be here as long as you need to.
I just want to ask about last class module on fluency for the pre-test. You said to go by the module right now, the assignments, but the link there for the submission was mixed up, and for the pre-test it had the fluency module, the important assignment, not the pre-test. So when I submitted the pre-test, I submitted it there, and then when I did the assignment, it was already something there. So I think the links were mixed up.
They were just mixed up. Okay,
yeah,
well,
so I had to go to the assignments and look for the the fluency pretest assignment submission, and that's where I resubmitted it there. But just to let you know that I have 2 different documents on the other one.
Okay. Okay, I'm sorry about that. So I mean, it's probably too late now for me to fix it, but I'll go in and try to clear it, and mix it up now. So if I have any problems finding any assignments there, I'll go back through and ask. Thank you for letting me know.
I have a question.
I forgot to ask you about the quick write. I did forget. I did post a quick write, guys. I'll send that out, an announcement. That's right. There's the writing quick write for you to submit for today. I had forgotten I did have that one for today.
Okay, yeah, because I was like, I don't know what to write about.
It's just the same thing as always. I put a few words on there to help you think about just getting you started, thinking about writing. What do you need to know about writing? What are things that you want to cut that you're thinking will be covered when it comes to assessments? Anything that you can write about when they just the same as always, thinking about what's coming up in that module. So it's just this reflection on, I know that we need to analyze students' writing and use writer's workshop in the classroom. Just whatever you can say right now about that area. That makes sense? I'm going to go ahead and post an announcement to everybody about that because I know some had checked out already. I forgot about that. Okay, guys, other questions?
I have a question, Professor Rodriguez.
Okay.
So you said something about working with our students. That's just okay. So I just want to know what's the biggest thing that's coming up is the classroom literacy project, and then turning in all the work we did with our students. Correct?
Yes, but right now that one-to-one work page is not available because I was reworking it. I'm actually making it I'm making it easier. I'm taking out some pieces of it.
Okay.
And basically at this point, you've got your writing module that's due in 2 weeks, and then everything else is that May 4th date.
Okay.
Okay. So
okay. I just want to make sure that I'm not missing out on anything, that I'm doing everything correctly.
I think you should see it, and I think the assignments now being available makes you be able to see it on the to-do list. And so following that, you should be on track.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Angel. Have a good week.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Anything else, guys, before I send out this announcement reminding everybody about this quick write? Turn that in if you haven't done it yet. Okay, I'm going to log out, guys. Anybody?